Welcome to the Atlanta Men's Workshop speaker and workshop recordings. Atlanta Men's Workshop is held every spring and fall at the Rock Eagle 4-H campus in Eatonton, Georgia. That's just about an hour east of Atlanta, Georgia. Please visit our website at atlantamensworkshop.com or see the link below to find dates and details to join us. Partial scholarships are available to those in need. We hope you enjoy this presentation, and we hope you will come join us at the Rock. Until then, we shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
All right, so I've been announcing the Saturday night speaker for a while. It's usually somebody that I don't know, so I have to try to hook up with them or meet somebody that knows them and find some good things to say about them, and that usually doesn't happen, so I just make stuff up. And then I got excited when I saw Larry Scott on the schedule for tonight, because I've known Larry for a long time. And then I realized I still don't have anything nice to say about him, so I will proceed to make stuff up. So, I mean, I've known Larry since I first started coming to the Rock in the 90s. Would come in, he'd be at the registration desk, him and Art. I just remember smiling faces, welcome you to the Rock. I've seen him at meetings over the years. Years ago at my home group, it was my birthday month. I got to choose a speaker, and I asked him to come out to New Hope in Marietta, and he shared his story, and it was great. And he shares his experience, strength, and hope with a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to him doing that for us tonight. So I bring you Larry Scott.
Man, I come walking in the back door and Gonzo's standing over here looking at his watch. And I sat down, damn, I'm 45 minutes late. Y'all didn't think that's funny. Wasn't me either. Looked at Gonzo and he goes, been a long time. It's good to be back at the Rock. And before I do my introduction, many years ago when we met in the Baker's building, on a Saturday morning we have those little 15, 20-minute speakers, you know, and there was a guy that I had made quick friendship with. He ran with Jewel and all that crazy bunch. His name was Walter Scott. And I fell in love with this guy. He sang out of the same songbook I did, and he was a 15-minute speaker that morning. Walter went up to the podium, and I adopted something that he did. He took off a little green ball cap and set it up on the podium. He said, "Good morning, y'all. My name's Walter Scott, and I'm free this morning." And it resonated all the way to my gut. I knew exactly what he meant. Sure is good to see y'all tonight. My name's Larry Scott, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm free tonight. Wayne, I don't know where you went, but thank you. Thank you guys on the committee. Y'all might have started drinking to invite me back up here. But anyway, I'm grateful to be here. I'm going to do a quick little thing on Bill Sanders because I could take 2 hours talking about that man. He scooped me up at 5 years dry. And over the next 17 years, he would guide me. He would mentor me. He would be my friend. He got me on this committee. But the thing that Bill Sanders did for me that I will share with you is he introduced me to you. I'm 5 years and I'm nailing newcomer girls because that's what I did. And Bill set some guidelines for me. He said, you're going to need to call me every day. And I said, that's a little excessive, don't you think? He said, well, you can do it or you can find somebody else to sponsor. I said, fine. So if you missed 2 days, Bill would call you. And never did I call him or meet with him, which we did frequently, with anything that life threw at me. His answer for that was, we're going to get through this. He taught me perseverance. But the biggest thing he did for me is he introduced me to you. During that relationship, there was a couple of weeks that I didn't call him, I didn't see him, missed home group, and I wouldn't take his calls. And it was on a reason, because he had another rule that you couldn't mess with newcomer women. And I go to meet him at a restaurant down from 8111 in Atlanta. He said, so, you've been busy? I said, yeah, man, really busy. Business? I said, oh yeah, covered up. Busy? I said, yes, sir. And he looked at me, and he said, what have you been busy doing, Larry? I said, I've been nailing these 2 little girls over at Moore. He took his glasses off, and he started crying. I said, why are you crying? You're going to cut me loose? He said, no. I'm hurt because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. And that was it for me. That was it. When I got the call to do this, life has been in session, and I'm not going to use this as a whiny session, but I will tell you that I'm just on the backside of a pretty bad cancer fight for the last 2 years. And I say that because I didn't do it by myself. There's a lot of men in this room that prayed real hard for me, and they had me in their church prayers, and they had me in their prayer circles, and I felt every one of them. There were people all over the planet praying for me. And just a few weeks ago, since I got the call and said, okay, I'll be there, I came out of my bedroom in Marietta. My feet went out from under me, and I fell down and broke my back. And better. I'm going to go in on the 27th. They're going to glue that back together. But when things like that become troublesome, you taught me to rely on God. And you taught me to rely on you for your guidance. And I've done that. One of the most difficult things about standing at this podium, at any podium on this property, I've been coming to these things, I've been to 30-something of them. I remember the men that have stood here. Kip Collins, Charlie Yao, Earl Hightower, Jimmy Smith, Scotty Ashlock, Father Ed Murray, and if you were privileged enough to know him, Big Happy Henry. I loved Henry. If y'all didn't know him, Henry's about this tall, and he couldn't write a word. He couldn't read a word. You asked Henry to sign your book, you put an X in it. And I saddled up with Henry because I fell in love with this giant man. And I was walking around with a newcomer guy one day, and the newcomer guy was wearing me out. It was over at the Baker's building. And he was wearing me out, and I saw Henry coming out of the snack room. And I said, I got somebody I want you to meet. And I put my arm around him, I took him over to Big Henry. Henry was over 6.5 feet tall. He's a big man. And he talked so fast, you had to slow him down. My name's Big Happy Henry. And I said, I want you to meet this man. I said, he's on a pedestal with me. He is the first cousin of God. You need to know him. His name's Big Happy Henry Dorset. And I introduced this newcomer to him. I kind of walked off. About 2 hours later, I came back by and they're sitting on that bench out in front of the banker's building, and Henry was all about it, man. He was letting that guy have it. But that's what Henry did. Came in, my sober date is December 31st, 1987. And I had been fellowshipping for 5 years. And I had been going to Bill Sanders' home group, the Mount Vernon group, and I got to the point of where it was mostly discussion hell for me, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I called Bill and I said, I can't do this anymore, Bill. And he said, well, maybe you need to find another type of meeting, a literature meeting or a speaker meeting. So I went on the hunt. And there was a Cocaine Anonymous meeting that started in my living room. It's still going today. It was called the End of the Line Group. There was myself, Paul Stonecipher, Jimmy Epps, the guy that answered the call when I called the hotline, Nick Lummis. And the meeting got bigger and bigger. I was living in a little duplex in Norcross, and I got sick and tired of washing those nasty ashtrays and coffee pots. So Jimmy lived in Norcross, and he got the log cabin, and the rest is history. So from the very jump, I've been pretty busy in the fellowship. I think that's imperative. But it's equally imperative to pass on to those men what you guys passed on to me. And I've only got one way to do that. I get the opportunity to stand up here, and it's a bad word, I'm not fond of the podium. I'd much rather be sitting one-on-one on a bench talking about this book. I'd much rather be sitting in a big book study, and I got the honor of traveling all over the planet doing Big Book Comes Alive. And I love it, but this is not one of my favorite things. When we started doing the Big Book Comes Alive in Atlanta, we started with a group called We Are Not a Glum Lot, and it's still going today. And we were doing the Joe and Charlie style book study. And Christian and I were sitting up at the table one night, and there's a couple of hundred people in the room. And I look in the back of the room, and in walks Charlie Parmalee. I about fainted. And I went back to him and I said, Charlie, I sure am intimidated by having you in this room. He said, why, Larry? I said, man, it's like going into a karaoke thing and singing I Can't Get No Satisfaction and have Mick Jagger walk in. And his canned response was all, ain't nothing to be intimidated by an old chicken farmer from Arkansas. And I'm going, easy for you to say. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we all wound up here tonight. I'm not a treatment center guy. That's not good or bad. It's just my story. I was homeless. I was living in abandoned cars and dumpsters when I got here. And my brother gave me one of these. This is all I knew about this. And so I started reading it as quickly as I could, which wasn't real fast. Y'all left money on this podium, and that is not a good idea. So what I read in this book, some of those guys went to detox. There's no such thing as treatment because there was no AA, there was no solution. So I kept digging. And I found out that Bill Wilson had been given the path. And he knew the way out, but he couldn't get anybody to hook up. He was up and down the alleys and the Boweries and the bar rooms, dragging drunks off of stools. And they were saying, get the hell out of my face with this. We're not interested, because he was talking about God. And at 5.5 months sober, he got his first guy, Dr. Bob Smith. But I need to go back. The person that brought this message to Bill, was a little buddy Ebby Thatcher. They'd drunk together. Abby had 60 days. Bill had 5.5 months. There's a point to this. Bill went to see Dr. Bob, and Dr. Bob hooked up. At 13 days sober, Bill and Bob went to the hospital in Akron and met Bill Dotson. And y'all can get angry about this, and you can kick my ass after the thing, but fact is, thank God Bill didn't wait a damn year, or Abby, before they brought that message to me. I read something recently, and I'm going to get off this pedestal. It said there's a great deal of ignorance and misunderstanding within the fellowship of AA these days as to what the program is and what it's not. Page 59 says, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. It doesn't say, here are the meetings we went to, nor does it say, here are the steps we talked about and discussed. And it doesn't say anything about 90 meetings in 90 days. It doesn't say don't drink and go to meetings. If you're doing that, please stop. You're sending these people out to a certain death. If I could just not drink and go to meetings, I wouldn't be here tonight. I promise you. So, some of the stuff I'm going to say that is not going to set right with you, if that's your case, don't argue with me. Go out and dig up the old timers and argue with them. They're the ones that said it, and they're the ones that wrote it, and that's where I'm getting all my information. And I can tell you, I've never seen a person drink because they worked the steps too fast. I've damn sure seen a bunch of them get drunk because they took them too slow. We've recovered and been given the power to help others. Page 132. Hung around the fellowship for 5 years, as I told you. No program, miserable. Didn't know it. I just thought that's the way it was, you know. Come to your meeting and dump your crap. Didn't know nothing about the book. Thank God Bill Sanders came in and intervened in my life and gave me some direction. And I met you guys. I didn't trust y'all when I first got here. My first rock, I was hiding behind those big loblolly pines out there watching y'all walk around and talk. And it was dark. Y'all had that bonfire meeting go on, and I knew this had to be some kind of conspiracy. So I got dry mouth real bad, so y'all have to forgive me for constantly drinking. That's one thing I've never gotten over, is drinking a lot. And back to the things that we're invited to do or have the privilege of doing, that's 12-step work. This is 12-step work. Not convenient, not real happy about having to do it or getting to do it. But it's what I've been watching my friend Lauren and his little guy. They're glued together constantly. He's carrying the message. Because somewhere along the way, we were told that I can't keep this unless I give you some of it. Hence, I'm wearing this silly suit and I'm standing here talking to you tonight. December 31st, 1987. I had nothing to do with it. I can just tell you that God intervened. I was drunk as a monkey out in Lawrenceville, Georgia. I came in September, but I kept drinking between meetings. Anybody? I could stomach y'all a lot better with a belly full of liquor, you know. And December 31st, 1987 is the drunk you told me I was going to have. And it's that one you just don't forget. But when I tapped into this source of power that you introduced me to, I became free. And I became what the book tells me is recovered. I'm not recovering. If you gave me, promised me recovering when I got here, there'd be another guy at the podium tonight. I need something to hang my hat on. It's like going in and I've got a gash in my leg and they're going to put a Band-Aid and methylate on it. No. Sew that sucker up. I need to get recovered from that. So, my first drink was moonshine whiskey. down in Hazelhurst, Georgia. I was about 6 years old. And I swore that night that I would never, ever, ever pour anything that hideous back in my body again. Little did I know I was going to chase that sucker in all forms until I met you. I didn't drink right away. In my era, that we were sniffing glue. In my era, we were huffing gas and all that other stuff that you could huff. And when I was a little kid, I was down in Hazelhurst, Georgia, which is where my parents or my family's from. And they would hire me when I was a little guy, and I was pumping the gas in those tractors that we were gathering tobacco with. And I would get up over the top of that gas tank and lean over and listen for that gas to come up in the fill neck of that gas pump. Something magical happened. I pass out and fall on the ground underneath that pecan tree. And they'd come out and say, "What's the matter with him?" "Oh, he's doing that gas thing again." So when I get back to Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm from, I'm a quick study. There's an Amoco station 2 blocks down the street. I got a job pumping gas. And back then, them Cadillacs and Oldsmobiles and stuff would come in, you had to pull the tag down. I know you young people don't know nothing about it, but back then you had to pull the tag down. And there was no automatic cutoffs. So I'd get down there and listen for that gas to come up in the fill neck, and they'd find me passed out in the driveway, gasoline squirting everywhere. I love gasoline. I love everything about gasoline. And then about 12 years old, a guy came up to me and said, "You know, if you take model airplane glue and squirt it in a penny candy sack and breathe it in, you can get high." I said, "Hot dog, 10 cents a tube." I wouldn't punch a hole in it. I'd unfold the bottom and squirt that whole sucker down in there. So at 13, I went to jail for huffing glue. And there was 14 of us before school one morning. We were walking down this alley in Jacksonville, huffing glue, and we were giggling and carrying on just out of our minds, loaded before school. And I was laid up on this woman's car in the alley, and we went back to school that morning, and the school was kind of square, and in the middle was a fountain, but you could see across that courtyard from vantage points. And all of a sudden, they called every Larry in that school. There's about 1,200 students. So all us Larrys are in the dean's office. Little did I know, the woman's car who I was high on her car, she was across the way and she identified me. Of course, I needed to get out, so I gave up everybody that was with me that morning. A bunch of us went to jail for huffing glue. Got my ass tore up because my daddy didn't understand huffing glue. He just knew that I'd stole that 10-cent tube of glue. Kind of morals I was raised with. So I go from gas and glue, and Jacksonville, Florida, our junior high school was kind of in town, if you will. And a buddy of mine, who's still my best friend today, we would scour the alleys behind the retail shops and pick up the discarded bottles that were thrown away by the winos, whatever. And we'd get one that had maybe that much in it. We poured in another one. And it didn't matter. We weren't discriminating. It could have been vodka, could have been bourbon, could have been port wine. It didn't matter. We poured all into one and we'd flip a coin to see who got to drink it. Sounds tasty, doesn't it? All you single malt scotch guys are going, ugh. And that's the way that drinking thing started for me. And it wasn't long, I got hip to where I could bribe the old men down there at the liquor store that were parked out in the parking lot drinking before they went home. And they would buy us whatever. We wouldn't tell them what we wanted to. And they brought me some horrible, horrible stuff through the years. They knew they were, I didn't know anything. They brought me some orange-flavored vodka one night. It might have been the closest thing to bug spray I have ever drank in my life. And had one bring me some slow gin. Boy, I'm going to tell you what, if you ain't never thrown up real good, get you a bottle of that. You can projectile vomit with slow gin. Scoot forward a little time in life. It's around 1970, 71. Still living in Jacksonville. And I'd worked for a bunch of radio stations in Jacksonville. The only reason I worked there is because there were women and drugs readily available. And my roommate at the time was a guy named Jimmy. And Jimmy owned a bar on the west side of Jacksonville. It was a biker bar. The bikers were pretty quick studies too, because they figured out that if they went there, the hippies came, and they found out that the hippies had something that they wanted. And it became a very violent atmosphere. The bikers would beat the hell out of the hippies and take their stuff. So you just never knew how that night was going to go. Well, it's a Wednesday night, and I'm standing at the bar. There wasn't many people there, and this guy walks up to me, and he said, and I only tell you this story to kind of tell you how I'm glued together, because I ain't right. This guy came up to me, and he goes, "How you doing? Never seen this guy before nor since, don't know his name." I said, "I'm good, how are you?" "I'm good. Do you like to fly?" I said, "I do, I love to fly. Never been in an airplane in my life, but sounded like a good idea." I was drunk and he was drunk. He said, "Well, I got an airplane out here at Hurlong Field, which is in West Jacksonville. Don't be confused by Hurlong Field. There ain't a damn thing about it to run an airport. It's a grass cow pasture. There is no lights. There's no tower. There's nobody there. There's 3 little single-engine planes parked over here, and there's a trailer house off in the distance. It's a cold November night." He says, "I'll be right back. I'll go get the keys." From the bar to Hurlong Field, I'd gotten sober. And I said, "This is not a good idea. You need to tell that guy that you're out." Well, see, there's an alter ego that lives in here. He's a cowboy. And the cowboy says, "Shut the hell up, we're going for an airplane ride." So the guy comes out, and he waved, and he got in this airplane, and light came on, nothing else happened. He waved again, he went back in the trailer house. He came back out, got keys, he gets on another plane, light comes on, nothing else happened. I ain't the sharpest pencil in the drawer, but I will tell you that I figured out we're stealing a damn airplane. 3 planes, third time out, light comes on, it spit a little smoke, sputtered a little bit, and he goes, and this was in slow motion, this is when reality set, and he goes, like, "Come on." So I get in this little plane, they give me a headset, and he says, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Dude, you're driving. I'm scared to death." And the takeoff was not pretty. I mean, he's drunk. I'm scared sober at this point. And this thing finally gets off the ground, and my butt had bit into that seat. I had gnawhide up my butt. I mean, I'm horrified. So he gets on that headset, and he calls Fling Nasty Saloon. He says, "We're going to come and buzz the bar." And I said, "Oh, God." Fling Nasty Saloon is like it's on Blanding Boulevard. Blanding Boulevard is a very commercial 4-lane road. Very commercial. Telephone poles. There's 7-Elevens. And so we're flying along there, and he starts dropping altitude. We weren't that far away. And he banks that plane, and I look out his little window there in front of the stick, and all these hippies and bikers from Fling Nasties are out on the damn sidewalk doing this. He went down right over the telephone poles, and there ain't no talking. I mean, this is silence at this point. I couldn't make a word if I had to. And he's not saying anything. And we keep flying west, but he never gained much altitude, just enough to get up over the poles. Kept flying west. Well, there's a river in that area of town. This is West Jacksonville, and it's called the Ortega River. Something you need to know, Jacksonville, Florida, waterways are all governed by the tides. I didn't look at the paper to see what the tides were going to be that day. I didn't care. So he drops down over the top of this river, And we're flying. I mean, the water was right there. And I look, and there was a bridge coming. And it's not like a bridge with cables. It's like a neighborhood bridge. And the opening is not a square opening. It's one of those half moon shaped things. Again, I don't know if it's low tide. I looked at the wings. I looked up in that bridge and I said, well, we're going to need some KY jelly to get through there. I told this story in Canada one time, and this woman asked me how long I was in the hospital. But back then, and sometimes even today, I'm in. I'm going to tell you a little blip about something that I was involved in. A lot of bands came out of Jacksonville, Florida in the 70s. A lot of them. Probably the most well-known was Leonard Skinner. And I was working with them, working with their management company. A little piece of information that you may not know. The lead singer, Ronnie Van Zant, was making an effort at getting sober. He was tapering off on the booze, and he'd given up drugs. His wife had just given birth to their little girl, Melody. And the insanity of being with that band on the road was all that. It was insanity, a lot of violence. And I was doing my best to transition over to their record label, MCA. And on October 18th, 1977, they were playing that night in Lakeland. They were going to fly out that afternoon, or the 19th, the next morning, for Greenville. And I was living with the bass player, Leon Wilkinson. And I went up to him at the table and I said, I'm not getting on the plane, because this plane had started the engine had started flaming out. And if you know anything about it, the pilot accidentally dumped fuel and they ran out of gas in Macomb, Mississippi. Early evening, October 20th. I don't tell you that to impress you with my resume. I tell you that because God didn't want me on that plane. I didn't know that then. I thought, what a lucky break, what a coincidence. But I didn't die. As of just a few days ago, the last living member of that band's gone, Gary Bossington. So they're all gone. And a lot of them died due to their alcoholism. A lot of them died because they had a real hard time driving a car while they were drinking, and which was all the time. So when that plane went down, I lost the identity that I had put together for myself. I didn't know what to do. So I called my brother that was living here in Atlanta, and he said, come to Atlanta. It's the land of milk and honey. I'd worked for a little label here, in and out, but I'd never lived here. So in June of 1980, I moved to Atlanta. I'd like to tell you I moved here. I didn't. I escaped. I did what we do. We did that Houdini thing, like everything's in the rear mirror. But when I get here, I'm homeless. I'm living, staying on the floor of my brother's place down in College Park. Went to work for a little record company over in Doraville. But at this point, you got to understand, I'm unemployable. I interview good, but I just can't keep the job. And I did a lot of that. Let that go. It's September of 1987, and a girl I had been living with off and on for 10 years came home from work. She was still working at the record label that I'd been fired from. She walked in the door and she said, Larry, you're dying and you can't do that here. I became homeless again. When I tell you I'm homeless, I'm not talking about hotels. I'm talking about mercy beds was a good thing. That would be somebody I don't know that would let me stay at their place for one night with the assurance that I'd be gone in the morning when they got up. If God gave me the window or the opportunity to talk with anyone in history, anybody I wanted, it would be my brother that's just older than me. He had found you. I didn't know that. We were old drinking buddies and doping buddies. And I was at this woman's house that I don't know, couldn't tell you her name. She lived in Duluth. She knew somebody that I ran with, a connection. And she said, you can stay here, but you got to be gone when I go to work in the morning. It's about 10 o'clock. Her phone rang. She says, hello? Yes, he's right here. My brother doesn't know her. Never met her, ever. It was my brother. I said, hello? He says, Larry, it's your brother. And the word is that you're in really bad shape, and if you don't get help, we're going to bury you. And I love you. And I thought he was going to tell me all about if you don't go to Peachford, go somewhere, that thing. And he told me about a meeting in Tucker, Georgia. Tucker Turtles. It was at Doctor's Hospital. He said, go over there, and there's going to be a guy named Nick that'll meet you. I don't know Nick. I don't know nothing about CA. I know nothing about any of this. And I show up, and there's Nick. And I looked around, and y'all were just a bunch of damn weirdos to me. I started, because it looked a lot like a Baptist church meeting to me. At the beginning of it, there was two people sitting in the front of the table. And they read some stuff. And it sounded like church readings, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sitting behind that pole in the back. And so every now and then, somebody would raise their hand, they'd talk about something, what I heard was religious, and I know today it wasn't. So I summed it up. I've been tricked one more time. I'm in a Baptist church. Ain't going to be long, they're going to do an altar call, and sure as hell, y'all had an altar call. But the weirdest thing was y'all giving out these plastic poker chips. And then the closing argument was you passed the hat, the offering plate. And I thought, well, that's it. But the people picking up the chips, I knew you could decorate them and call them anything you wanted, but I knew what they were. Y'all were getting saved in a whole different way. So I kept going to your meetings, but I don't want to quit. So I'm drinking in between. I quit doing all that other stuff. I'm weaning off, but I'm drinking in between meetings. And that's when December 31st rolled around, and it was the drunk I told you about earlier that I'm going to tell you, if you ain't had it yet, it'll be the one you don't forget. I'm homeless off and on during this entire period. Going to the meetings, but I can't not drink. I could quit, but I just couldn't stay quit. And then came that night, December 31st of 87. This time when I'm out there homeless and I'm living in the elements, I'm no longer desperate. If you read in this book, Wilson talks about in Bill's story, he says, I had to be for I was, he says, I was desperate. I had a desperate desire. And then over, I think it's on about page 12, and he's talking to Ebby, he says, he was sober. And he says, would I want it? And he says, I had to be because I was hopeless. There's a big difference in desperate and hopeless. Desperate's got a little bit of wiggle room. You still got some good old ideas. If you go back to that job site and say just the right thing to your old buddy, he might let you come back to work. You go down to that judge and you say just the right things, he's liable to give you one more no-lo. And if you got a woman in your life, if you sweet talk her just right, she might let you back in the big bed. But when you're hopeless, it means exactly that. You don't need the definition. And when you're hopeless, we got you right where we want you. Y'all are teachable at that point. I was. So, when I came back into 12-step programs, I was going to AACA. I went to all the A's for a minute because I wanted to see what they were all about. I was hopeless. And if you'd offered me one more middle-of-the-road solution, I may be in prison tonight because I was dying with your middle-of-the-road solution crap. I needed the truth, and I needed it now. I've been in and out for 3 months. Heard a guy tell me one time, he said, sounds like you were like George Custer at Little Bighorn. I said, what does that mean? He said, you needed a damn airstrike. Exactly. Don't send the posse. Send me a damn airstrike. So I'm going to your meetings, and my brother-in-law had given me a job at a car store. And it was late one night. I was living in Norcross, and I'm driving north, and I keep waiting every day for that vital spiritual experience, that white light thing that Bill Wilson talks about in his story. It's about 10 o'clock, 10:30 one night, driving up 85 North in a borrowed car. And I didn't have a white light. I didn't see a burning bush. There was no booming voice. But what happened that night, a knowledge came into my head. And that knowledge was I never, ever had to be alone again. And it was profound. And to this day, I'm still, and God embodied, or God in spirit. I'm never alone again. So I hooked up with my brother, and we were going to his meetings out in Marietta. And I'm dealing with these damn old timers, and they were cantankers, and they said stuff that did not make any sense. None. Just turn it over. I'm in a meeting one night, and average sobriety in there was about 35 years. And those guys love me because I'm hopeless, man. I'm all hemmed in. We're sitting in this little squared off circle one night, and they said, has anybody got anything they need to talk about, which I hate, but I said, yeah. Y'all tell me when I'm out of good ideas to just turn it over. So this morning, I went to work, and I damn near got fired. So I went in the men's bathroom and pulled down some paper towel and grabbed a hold of the sink, and I just turned it over. I thought it sounded good. Well, Jack Blaylock's sitting over here. He's got about 150 years sober, and he smoked those damn unfiltered Luckies back when you could smoke in meetings. And Jack, he said, yeah, buddy, that turned it over some good stuff. Back when I lived in Alabama, he said, I got caught for driving without a license, and he said, I just turned it over. He said, they turned that shit over to the sheriff. He came out and tried to turn it over to him, and he locked my ass up. I said, that ain't funny. So I'm keeping my mouth shut around these old timers. I'm sucking everything out of them I can because I could tell by the way they were living that they had a way out. And there was an old woman in there. Her name is Jean Graves, came from that old Atlanta money. She had lost an arm here, but she was always dressed like she was going to the ball. Hair up in a bun, white silver hair. And everybody was dolling. She loved me. I was a new guy. So I got up one morning and he told me I needed to pray on my knees, which is really weird for a guy that's raised Baptist, but I was doing it because I wanted to get sober. So I got down on my knees that morning and I said this prayer, and it was empty. And I'm giving birth to this little conscience, and I'm thinking, something's wrong here. So I started calling people. I had that old accordion phone list that had like 200 numbers in it. Up at the top was that old main sponsor. And nobody was home Saturday. So I get Jean Graves on the phone. I said, Jean, it's Larry Scott. She says, hey, darling. I said, Jean, I got this problem. She said, tell me about it, baby. I said, Jean, I got up this morning, I got on my knees and I prayed, and the prayer was empty. I felt like I was a fraud. It was just a long, pregnant pause, and she came back and she says, well, darling, pray about it. I'm thinking, boy, these guys are really helpful. And what has happened in the years I've been here, the longer I'm here, you don't get to a place and stop unless you make that conscious decision. You continue to wake up, become more aware, and you start seeing and hearing things and doing things that were shared with you, and your world just continually expands, and sometimes it even explodes, and that's my story today. I never dreamed in a million years that I would be sitting in front of groups sharing information out of this book, and people were listening and taking notes and asking questions, like if you just knew who I was and where I came from. What I've discovered is when the awareness begins, this thing just grows and continues to expand. And I've known lots of people that same experience has happened to. Something happened to me in 2006 on the way here, and I've never shared it here. But it was profound. It's probably the most life-altering experience I've ever had in my life. And it just so happens I was en route here. It's 2006. And there were so many things sideways. The woman that I'd been living with for some time, she had a disease called Ewing sarcoma, and it was in her right shoulder blade. And she'd gone to MD Anderson, and they had removed that shoulder blade, and she's missing a huge piece of bone. And needless to say, there were problems with that. In 1992, I had woman problems again, and my sponsor said, you need to leave women alone and get yourself a dog. And I did. And for 14 years, Catfish lived with me. And he loved me like no other human being ever has. And he died. This is all happening. Susan, the dog, dies. I owned a house over in East Cobb. Cold, like December. Both furnaces went out. All this happened within 2 weeks. I got a fire burning in this 2-story fireplace, and a cinder came up through the 2nd story and landed in some dry leaves outside and set my house on fire. All this is happening. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm losing it. I was caving in. And I said, okay, God, what's your point? What are you trying to tell me? That was on a Thursday. Friday morning, I got on that Harley, and I was coming to the Rock. And there were, Scott Jackson was beside me, and we were coming in from Highway 78, running about 65 miles an hour. Beautiful, brisk morning, and there were like 75 bikes behind me. I'm not thinking about anything except I'm trying to get all this negativity in the rearview mirror. And all of a sudden, all this happened this quick. I saw movement in my upper right periphery over the tops of those pine trees. I looked, and it was a red-shouldered hawk with a wingspan of probably 5 feet. He did a vertical dive. He came straight down, He leveled off over this ditch. He came in front of mine and Scott's motorcycles. And when he got right there, he turned his head and looked into my guts, looked into my soul. And I was like, oh. And I looked at Scott and he was freaking out. So we come on down the road and I'm thinking I got to clean my britches out, you know. And we stopped and Scott said, what the hell was up with that hawk? I said, I don't know. So I get back home and I can't get it out of my mind. So I started calling people that were in Native American spirituality. And I called a buddy of mine that stood at this podium, Scotty Ashlock, out in Colorado. And Scotty said, Larry, that hawk was bringing you a message. I said, what's the message? He said, I don't know. Your hawk, your experience. That's what old timers do. They speak in code. So if you're new here, don't ask them. Just keep walking. What I realized, all the negativity that had happened up to that day, I was being taught how to get through the other side of it. And y'all know how I got through it. I got a God in my life, and he takes care of stuff like that. I'm sitting at my desk right after this incident, and my office is in my home, and my phone rang. It was from a girl that I'd never met, but I knew her by internet, and this was before Facebook. Her name is Pia Edstrom, and she and I had talked a good bit by internet. She lived in Gavle, Sweden. And we're talking, and she said, Larry, do you know anyone that's sober in West Virginia? Never been to West Virginia. And I thought, and I said, Pia, I know one person, and he's real sober. She said, really? I said, yeah. She said, could you give me his contact information? I've never met this guy. And we're like brothers today because I've met him and his wife. His name is Ryan Corvo. I didn't ask her why she was looking for somebody in West Virginia. For crying out loud, she lives in Sweden. So the next time I talked to her, she's operating some sort of a hotline hookup on the internet. And there's a girl that lives on the West Virginia-Ohio line named Jaden Campbell. Jaden had served in the Gulf War. She was the commander of a Humvee that was blown up, blew off the right side of her body. And she's got no solution. She's living out in the woods outside of Parkersburg, West Virginia, and she's drinking and trying to kill herself, eating all that dope that the VA had given her. Pia emails her, calls her, whatever. I don't know anything about Jaden. Never met her. Know nothing about her. And by the way, just before this phone call, she couldn't drink herself to death. She took a 45, put it to her chest, and blew herself across the room and lived through it. Pia gets hold of her and says, there's a guy in West Virginia, his name's Ryan Corvo, here's his number. Jaden calls, Ryan leaves work and drives over to her house. Sits down and talks to her, kind of, smooths out the wrinkles, puts her in the car and takes her to her first meeting. Took her back home and took her through the work that day. Now, y'all figure that out. I'm sitting at my desk minding my business about 10 o'clock in the morning, and a damn woman I don't know in Sweden calls me and gets a phone number for a girl in Ohio that I don't know, and I give her the number of a guy in West Virginia that I don't know, and here we are. We can say that's a coinky-dink if y'all want to. That's got God's fingerprints all over it. So Sanders is running in and out of this workshop and doing the committee thing, and I'm sponsoring guys, going to home group, and through contact with him and contact with you, I learned about men. I learned about how to make a better contact with the God of my understanding, and I did it down here around these pine trees with you guys. And today I've got the opportunity to spend a good amount of time with two men that I love and have known for a long time. What an honor. And Kip Collins, he came in, and Kip taught me the meaning of commitment. And if you're new here, you might want to put your fingers in your ears, because this is going to spoil you. The commitment means you either do it or you died on the way. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it. It's that simple. And you stick to that, and I promise you, you'll be a better human being because of it. So when I got overloaded on discussion meetings, I started poking around, and I walked into a big book study over in Sandy Springs. And these guys were talking about the book in a way that I'd never heard it. And the night that I walked in, they were in the chapter to wives. Didn't have one, didn't need one, didn't want one. That chapter did not apply to me. But something said stay. And all of a sudden, the chapter to wives came alive. So I went up to the guy that was leading, a lot of y'all know him. And I said, man, you did something in that study tonight that's never happened. He said, you ought to come back Wednesday night. We're doing a meeting right up here at Sandy Springs Christian Church. So I went back on Wednesday night, and it was the same thing. This book started exploding, and it's the same book I've had for all these years. So I said, Art, where are you at? I called him on the way home. Art and I were working together. He and I had made a commitment that we were going to find out what was in here. We had it, but we didn't know it in the intimate way that we wanted to. And I said, I've tapped into something, and we got to have it. And Art and I went down to Ansley Mall area the following Wednesday to a guy named Rob Hayes' house, and there were 6 guys there. And they brought this book to life. And they challenged us to carry this message yet to others. And I thought, well, yeah, I'll get around to that. And then the guy that had actually opened this up to us, he committed 6 months of his life every Thursday or every Tuesday at Mar. And he would sit down with me and all my guys, and they took us through this book. And they opened up a brand new chapter to my recovery. That's more than you gave me a while ago. Not only did I get a solution, I garnered a couple things from working with others at the level that I was taught, and it gave me some integrity, and it gave me a reputation that I never had. The reputation I walked in here with was tarnished, and I got that from you guys. So as we stand up here and we share this information, and I see Lauren and his guy working, we're doing the same thing. We're comforting the disturbed, and we're disturbing the comfortable. And if you're in this room tonight, and I've disturbed you a little bit, mission accomplished. Our purpose in workshops like this and working one-on-one and doing the things that we do is to bring this program, which is this, back into the fellowship. See, there's 2 AAs. There's this, the program, and then there's the fellowship. And the fellowship, I'm not going to tell you is bad, but the fellowship's flawed. This reading in here saved millions and millions of lives all over the world for a lot of years. And you can rely absolutely on anything you say about it. So I'm in Iceland a few years back with my sponsor, and we'd done a Fellowship of the Spirit thing. And on Saturday, I went up to the podium, and I was talking about step 10 and 11. And since 92, I think, I've prayed one-on-one with another man every week, usually do it at home group. And I was talking about that in this workshop. So when the workshop was over, this great big Icelandic Viking comes up to me. His name's Jan Lufkinson, and all the men in Iceland have got monobrows. And you can't understand a damn thing they say. All the women are beautiful, most amazing women. Anyway, he comes up to me and he said, I'm staying in your hotel. I said, cool. He said, could I come to your room and pray with you in the morning? I said, sure. So about 8 o'clock in the morning, he came in, and we pulled these 2 chairs, and we're holding hands, and I told him what we were going to do. And I opened this prayer thing, and I squeezed his hands to signal for him to begin praying, and he speaks very broken English. So he gets about 10 words into it, and he starts jerking me back and forth. Keep in mind, this guy's huge. And he goes, I said, what? He says, I must meet God in my tongue. I said, rock on. And so he starts talking to a God of his understanding that I don't understand in a language I've never heard. Tears started dripping off my beard. I knew at that moment that this man was in a conscious contact with the God of his understanding. Jan and I have stayed in touch. He lives in Akerey, just north of Reykjavik. So I get to see the manifestation of God in the people around me. I don't have to work directly with them. I can just see it. Seen it today. You guys demonstrate it. Next time you go to your home group, your meeting, I'm going to challenge you. Grab your book. Put your book in your lap. Get your coffee and go to your chair. Everybody's got their chair. I promise you, come to our home group, if you sit in that chair, your ass is moving because she's going to come say, that's my chair. Go to your chair, get your coffee, get your book, sit down and close your eyes and listen. Sit down, close your eyes and listen for 1 hour in your meeting for 1 hour. And see if there is a newcomer in your group for that 1 hour, did that newcomer hear the solution to the thing that's killing him? Do it. I promise you, you'll be surprised. Because we want to talk about that damn shopping cart that got away and ran inside of my car, Piggly Wiggly, see? What's that got to do with not drinking liquor? Nothing. I need to know how not to drink, how to quit doing that dope and killing myself and the people around me. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we got 2 kinds of people. We got players. Gonzo's a player. I know what he did. All of this stuff that you see, he's head of the committee. Here we are. We got them people that give rides to those little newcomers. We take them through the work. We buy them books. And then you got the fans that show up. They take the rides. They spill the coffee on the carpet, and they steal the books. It's okay, but there's players and fans. And guys, you got to ask yourself tonight, what's your role going to be? Are you a player or are you a fan? Pretty quick answer, isn't it? I burned up my 10 minutes. In Cherokee, my word for you is wadu. Thank you. And remember, guys, we're just walking each other home. That's all we're doing. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, Larry. We're in the same room, so we're going to share that blanket tonight. Hey, you forgot that money you were going to steal.